One of the biggest criticisms that I see leveled at Xbox is that they have no console exclusives and that nothing comes out on that platform. I thought I would take a look at all the games that came out in 2021 to see if that is still true. And what I found was a bit surprising. Let's go over it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you like these sort of videos, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when they go live. So I was going through the PlayStation releases of 2021 and the Xbox releases of 2021. And to the best of my ability, I was counting every game, even the smaller games that were exclusive to said platform. And then I sort of categorized by what's a re-release, what is like a big game for that console. And the answer was actually quite surprising. So to break it down, near as I can tell, and this is to the best of my ability, there were 28 exclusives on the Xbox platform, and PlayStation, the platform where everybody touts the most exclusives, the best exclusives, had 23 exclusive games on their platform. So already I'm starting to be like, that's really, really interesting. Now, originally, the goal of the video was to be like, okay, is there any truth to this? And, what does it look like for 2022? But just looking at 2021, I was actually surprised at the findings. So the games coming out PlayStation 5 in 2021 include Destruction All-Stars, Auto Chess, Genshin Impact, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Chicory, Guilty Gear Strive, Where the Heart Leads, Tribes of Midgard, Hunter's Arena Legends, Axiom Verge 2, Fist, Toem, Jet, Solar Ash, Deathloop, Returnal, Kena, and then Neo, Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy VII, The Eternal Castle, Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding Director's Cut. So looking at a few of those games, a few of them are being sort of re-released or reworked for the next-gen platform. That includes Neo, Neo 2, the Neo Collection, Neo 2, based on Google, came out originally in 2020 and has been, re-released on the PlayStation 5 platform. Final Fantasy XIV, that's a re-release. Final Fantasy XIV has always been available on the PlayStation 4 platform. It was released on the PlayStation 5 and got some content enhancements. Final Fantasy VII, that one I'll sort of give you. Now, I labeled 7 of these games as big titles, and the ones that I labeled big titles important to the PlayStation platform included Genshin Impact, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Guilty Gear Strive, Axiom Verge 2, Deathloop, Returnal, and Kena. Now, Final Fantasy VII falls into sort of a weird place because they've been doing this thing where they release a piece of content and then they sort of do a few updates to it. Well, they do graphical updates to it, but then they also include content. So games that sort of fall into that category include Final Fantasy VII, Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding Director's Cut. Ghost of Tsushima specifically had Iki Island. Final Fantasy VII had some missions with a new character, and Death Stranding Director's Cut is adding new content. So you could potentially bump that up to 10 if you consider add-on content to be brand new, like a whole new game, basically, right? But to me, the larger draw was that these games were enhanced for the PlayStation 5, and they're doing something interesting where they add a little bit more content to get you to buy the product. Again, it's an old strategy, and it works, certainly. Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding Director's Cut, top of sales charts, doing very, very well. But I'm more interested in the totally brand new content, the exclusives that everybody talks about. So I would definitely say Kena, Returnal, Deathloop, Axiom Verge 2, Guilty Gear Strive, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Genshin Impact are notable all-new titles, not re-releases where they added additional content or something like that. Right, so for me, I put 7 new big titles on the PlayStation platform, and they have a really, really good library. To date, Returnal is still one of my favorite games of the year. I had a really, really good time with that product, and I think Ratchet and Clank is going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists. Now, looking at the Xbox platform, at the start of the year, they had a lot of smaller titles that didn't necessarily, maybe they don't have mass appeal, right? But to deny that Xbox has had great games on their platform in the year 2021 it's sort of untrue. So let's look at it. We had the Medium, which was a timed exclusive. So If you don't want to include the Medium as an Xbox release for 2021 because it is now available on both platforms, we can take that out. That reduces their number of games to 27 games, 28 with the Medium included. And then also I have Flight Simulator on here, which came out a year ago on PC. So that brings it down to 26 entries. So 23 on PlayStation, 23 on Xbox. So going over the other entries, we had the Ori Collection, Adios, Genesis Noir, Phantasy Star Online 2, Helleborn, Wingspan, Space Jam, Death Store, Flight Simulator, The Ascent, Lawnmower Simulator, Library of Runia, Sam & Max, that was a re-release, The Veil, Shadow of the Crown, 12 Minutes, Myst, The Big Con, Cloud Gardens, Lake, Surgeon Simulator, The Artful Escape, Skatebird 2, Sable, Into the Pit, Football Manager 2022, Forza Horizon 5, and Halo Infinite. Now, a few of those aren't out yet, and just like on the PlayStation list, a few of those aren't out. But I would say that there were, 9, maybe 8 if you don't count the Flight Simulator console release, notable releases on the Xbox platform. Those notable releases to me include Phantasy Star Online 2, Death Store, Flight Simulator, The Ascent, 12 Minutes, Lake, The Artful Escape, Forza Horizon 5 to come, and Halo Infinite to come. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because the discourse for so long has been that Xbox doesn't have any content exclusives. And you can kind of look at the lists that I presented and make your own determination about that fact. But looking at them both, seeing that there were 23 console exclusives on the PlayStation 5, and there were 28 console exclusives on the Xbox console, I don't think that's necessarily true. And not all the games on PlayStation 5 were major hits either. A lot of them were smaller indie titles. Like Tribes of Midgard was actually one that was fairly notable because that was made by a very small team, and it turned out to be an excellent title. I've also heard the same about Chicory. Then on the Xbox side, let me see. Death Store, definitely, that's actually on my notable release list. I know it's silly, but Lawnmower Simulator is very popular. The Veil, Shadow of the Crown. I don't know about that. I don't know about enough about that one to make a call. Myst will certainly be notable. And I think Sable will be notable also. Not because they're masterpieces or anything, but because they're smaller indie titles that are being supported by this platform. Now, I've talked before about why I think 2022 is going to be an absolutely phenomenal year for gaming. So taking a look at these lists in 2021, I think there's some misconceptions going on about both platforms, right? First of all, PlayStation has had some great hits, but their strategy with their re-releases has been to add content onto those re-releases and then repackage them and sell them to upgrade. It's been around $30 or $40 for games like Death Stranding Director's Cut. Death Stranding, I think you can do it for $10, and Ghost of Tsushima, I think it was $20 or $30. And then Final Fantasy VII, that was re-released. Final Fantasy XIV was a re-release. So they're adding a few things to incentivize you to purchase those games again. And the games that they're doing that with are really, really good games that have been celebrated by the community. Over on the Xbox side, though, the biggest criticism I've heard is that they just don't have anything. And looking at this list, that just seems not to be true anymore. So sure, that was a criticism that, honestly, I was blue in my face talking about it for the entire Xbox One era. They just did not have the games that they needed to keep up. But the fact that that narrative is still being pushed is just something that I fundamentally disagree with, looking based on these lists that I've just looked at today. And I think it's only going to become stronger for both companies going into 2022 with games like Stalker, for example, one of the ones that I'm really, really excited about in 2022. And then on the Xbox side, it should also be noted that there are several titles that still don't have confirmed release dates, including Scorn, Crossfire X that I've brought up many times, Bright Memory Infinite that could potentially still come out in 2021, but we are waiting to hear more. So that's sort of my 2 cents on the situation, and the fact that we're getting a lot of great games next year, something that I've been talking about more and more on the channel. I kind of want to sort of tear down this narrative that Xbox doesn't have anything. It's not true. And the fact that anybody would turn on their blinders and pretend to not understand why the Xbox platform is attractive when you have obviously the service that you've probably heard much about, Game Pass. You have a really, really great library of games. I know Phantasy Star Online 2 is a game that people will just play obsessively. Something like 12 minutes that's a little bit more experimental, that has big name voice actors included. Little controversial, but they're willing to take a chance. I know Ascent will probably get a lot of criticism because a lot of people found that it didn't score as high as people had hoped, but I see a lot of positivity out there about the product. And then, Forza and Halo are indicative of what we can expect in the future from Xbox as they sort of line up this stable of great games. And Death's Door is sounding like it is going to be a Game of the Year contender in the same way that Returnal is going to be a Game of the Year contender. Both consoles have been doing an interesting job of offering different types of games for their consumers. And I'm really, really happy to see that. My whole thing has been competition is good. Xbox has stepped up to the plate, and they have been providing and answering the criticism that they have had for years that they don't have any games. And now we have a nice list of some pretty interesting titles that are emotionally evocative, like Lake, for example, I think would be a good example of a title that hit people in an interesting way. Anyway, let me know what you think about this topic, because I think it's not true that Xbox doesn't have any exclusives anymore. And it's only going to get better for Xbox gamers and for all gamers going into 2022, because PlayStation gamers are going to get their continued great games on their service. And Xbox has finally set up a release cadence that is going to allow Xbox gamers to have great games. And they even had those games in 2021. That's why Game Pass is getting so much attention. That's why Xbox has been getting so much attention this year. Anyway, let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you watching very much. If you like these sort of videos, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Thank you, everybody who has subscribed this far. Still going for 100,000 this year. If you would like to become a member just to support the channel, you can do so. Memberships are turned on. You just click the join button and you can become a member at whatever tier you choose. Thank you to everybody who's become a member this far. I'm going to get out of here. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you for the next one, everybody.